Are you suffering from ideological bloat, verbal diarrhea, brain cramps, all over the current Trump action against Iran? This is a medical warning. You may be suffering from IPS, Iranian propaganda syndrome.
So Ben Shapiro just dropped a masterclass on Iranian psychological warfare targeting Americans, and it's absolutely critical viewing. He's exposing how Iran is spreading propaganda through social media and even turning some conservative voices into unwitting assets. This is about national security meeting information warfare.
This war is justified, it will be short, and we will win. Okay, so let's talk about the justification for the war. A lot of people are still asking, understandably, what this conflict is all about. After all, they say the administration has made a wide variety of cases. It's about preventing terrorism, or maybe it's about nuclear development, or ballistic missile development, or it's about helping the Iranian people overthrow the regime. It's about an imminent threat, or maybe a more distant future threat. See, here is the actual answer. All of the above.
The multi-threat framing is spot on. Iran has killed over 600 Americans through proxy attacks since 1979, funds Hezbollah with $700 million annually, and their nuclear program could produce weapons-grade uranium within months. This isn't about one justification. It's about confronting a regime that threatens America across multiple domains simultaneously.
See, as we've discussed, Iran is an enemy of the United States and has been for nearly half a century. They're responsible for the death of hundreds of Americans, the undermining of American allies, the spread of terror regionally and globally, attempted assassinations of President Trump, and massive geopolitical turmoil. Iran is also a supplier of oil to China. About 60% of all Iranian oil goes to China, our chief geopolitical opponent, and they are a supplier of drones to our other chief geopolitical opponent, Russia.
This China-Russia-Iran axis is the real story. Iranian Shahed drones have killed thousands in Ukraine, while China gets 90% of its Iranian oil at discounted rates, funding both regimes. Iran literally tried assassinating Trump twice in 2024. The geopolitical chessboard couldn't be clearer.
Iran has been redeveloping its nuclear capacity since the 12-day war. If they achieved a nuclear weapon, it would make it nearly impossible to course-correct the regime or topple it. See North Korea. At the same time, a unique opportunity presented itself. Millions of Iranians in the streets, hoping to overturn the regime. A uniquely weak Iranian air defense capacity, and the complete collapse of the Iranian economy. It is in America's interest for Iran to pose no threat to its neighbors, the region, or the world. It's in our interest to dramatically weaken that China-Russia-Iran axis. And it's in our interest to act when we can at the point of highest possible success and the point of lowest possible risk.
The North Korea model is exactly right. Once they got nukes, regime change became impossible. Iran's protests in 2022 showed popular uprising potential. Their air defenses were degraded, and their economy collapsed 40%. Trump recognized this perfect storm of strategic opportunity.
We're almost there now. We are running out of targets in Iran. That is the reality. Here is a timeline of the first 10 days of Operation Epic Fury as put out by the Department of War. I mean, that is an awfully large list of targets, including the blowing up of Iran's major air defenses.
Compare this to Iraq and Afghanistan. 20 years, trillions spent, unclear objectives. This Iranian operation achieved decisive strategic objectives in 10 days through precision strikes and technological superiority. The speed demonstrates what American military power can accomplish with clear goals and competent leadership.
I'm sorry, but it isn't. Crude oil closed yesterday at about $80. Remember, catastrophists were predicting 48 hours ago it would be at $150 or $200 a barrel. As Alicia Finley points out in the Wall Street Journal, quote, unlike during past oil shocks in the 1970s and the first Gulf War, the United States does not depend on the Middle East for oil. The vast majority of the oil Americans consume is now produced in the United States and Canada. Americans will see higher prices in the short term because oil is traded globally. But we face little risk of actual supply shortages unlike the 70s. More vulnerable is China, which gets most of its oil from the Middle East and Russia.
Trump's first-term energy independence policies are paying massive dividends now. America produces 13 million barrels daily versus Iran's 3 million. While China faces energy shortages and Europe scrambles for alternatives, America's strategic position strengthens. Economic warfare favoring us completely.
The Washington Post is now reporting that pro-Iran accounts have been overwhelming social media with AI slop connecting Trump with Jeffrey Epstein. According to the Post, quote, to erode public support for the joint U.S.-Israel military operation, Iranian state media has sought to portray those countries' leaders as part of a corrupt and depraved Epstein class or Epstein regime. While such content often fails to gain much traction outside Iran, the message is spreading through generically named news accounts that researchers say appear to be using the Epstein conspiracy theories to serve pro-Iran talking points to a global audience. The Epstein posts are part of a maelstrom of Iran-related misinformation that has engulfed social media since February 28th, when strikes by the United States and Israel killed the country's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, and touched off a conflict that has spread across the Middle East.
Iranian cyber warfare is incredibly sophisticated. They're exploiting American social media algorithms and conspiracy theories, targeting specific psychological vulnerabilities. The Epstein angle hits both anti-establishment sentiment and QAnon networks simultaneously. This is asymmetric warfare through information manipulation.
Iran has found pretty fertile ground for this psyop. Members of the Grievance Party, eager to spread rumors of conspiratorial cabals who are actually running the world. In their view, President Trump is never the decision maker. It's deeper, darker forces who are in true control. Jimmy Kimmel, right on cue, exemplified this last night when he thought it was absolutely hilarious to point out that Trump's actions in Iran are supposedly a distraction from the Epstein files. Because, of course, the conspiracy can't end with, Jeffrey Epstein. Now entire wars are being started by the Epstein cabal. The same thing that those with Iranian propaganda syndrome and the people promoting it, like Iran, are saying.
The analysis here is brilliant. Iran understands American political paranoia better than Americans do. When mainstream figures like Kimmel amplify Iranian talking points unknowingly, it shows how enemy propaganda infiltrates through domestic skepticism. The resistance becomes the regime's useful idiots.
Let's talk about Joe Rogan for a second. So, obviously, I'm friendly with Joe. Joe is a skeptic of intervention. It's fair enough. But his arguments are not convincing. Joe keeps insisting that this is an endless war. Now, that's wild because we are less than 2 weeks into the war, and it's not going to last probably more than another 2 weeks. When Michael Schellenberger pointed this out on his show, Joe then responded that all wars are endless, which, they're not.
The diplomatic correction here is perfect. Rogan's all wars are endless logic would have prevented World War II. Reflexive anti-interventionism ignores strategic reality. Sometimes short, decisive action prevents longer conflicts. Historical precedent matters more than ideological reflexes.
MAGA remains behind President Trump foursquare. According to a brand new YouGov Economist poll, 91% of MAGA supporters approve of the way Trump is handling Iran. 83% of Republicans overall approve. No one is feeling betrayed unless they fundamentally misunderstood President Trump's foreign policy from the get-go.
Those poll numbers are crushing for critics. 91% MAGA approval shows Trump's base understood his peace through strength doctrine from day one. The social media noise doesn't represent actual Republican sentiment. It represents Iranian information operations amplifying fringe voices.
So Joe's standard of evidence here is literally no evidence. So if there's no evidence of a proposition, according to Joe, then you should assume that it's happening. Now, here's the problem. That mindset is the most exploitable mentality possible for bad actors. Iran knows this, which is why they are spreading it. And ironically, people who pose as the great skeptics of the system, the people who suspect conspiracy lurking around every single corner, are actually often drinking from a well poisoned by actual Iranian propaganda.
This is the key insight. Iran weaponizes American skepticism against America. They flood conspiracy networks, knowing paranoid Americans will spread enemy propaganda, thinking they're being independent thinkers. The psychology is brilliant and terrifying. Critical thinking gets completely perverted.
Well, speaking of people who share Rashida Tlaib's foreign policy, Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky, true isolationist and sort of charter member of the Noam Chomsky Foreign Policy Brigade on the far right of the Republican Party, he was complaining about the war in Iran, suggesting that somehow it is a symptom of a policy to free all oppressed people, which will lead to endless war. Again, this is if there is such a thing as AI slop, this is just political slop.
The far-left libertarian convergence on foreign policy is remarkable. When your position aligns with Rashida Tlaib, Hamas, and the Iranian regime simultaneously, that should trigger serious self-reflection. Isolationism becomes indistinguishable from enemy propaganda when America's under attack.
Our policy is to end threats to the United States and our interests. We're not focused on going to war to end the oppression of the North Koreans or the Chinese, and Rand Paul knows that. But, the propagandists have to propagandize, and that, in the end, is Iran's last resort, getting some fifth columnists in the United States to push their ideas.
Fifth columnist is the precise term. Americans advancing enemy interests, whether knowingly or not. Iran's asymmetric strategy relies on this domestic dissent to undermine military operations. Some propagandists realize their role. Others are genuinely useful idiots.
The fact that they are mirroring the same conspiratorial insanity as the government of Iran says something about their priorities, the priority being undermining faith and trust in the Trump administration and also America's institutions more broadly. So, for those who are suffering from Iranian propaganda syndrome, if you find yourself mirroring the false narratives of people who seek America's destruction, try to get off the juice. Seriously.
The wake-up call is essential. When you're echoing Iranian regime talking points while American forces are in combat, examine your information sources. Iran's goal isn't just regional dominance, it's destroying American institutional confidence from within. Recognize the manipulation.